Sometimes the greatest betrayals don't come from enemies, but from the people we call family. In today's dramatic story, Diem falls to her knees in the courtyard, begging Tuan's mother to let her stay, only to be heartlessly driven out of the farm she once called home. When Tuan returns, he learns the devastating truth. He isn't her real son at all, but an orphan she raised for convenience. Even he is now threatened with being cast out like Diem. What will Tuan choose? Loyalty, love, or survival? The afternoon sun hung high above the quiet farmland. Not a single cloud in sight. The sky was bright, clear, and peaceful. Yet for Diem, the world had never felt heavier. She stood in the open courtyard of the farm that had been her home for years, her legs weak, her heart pounding painfully in her chest. Then, unable to hold herself upright any longer, she knelt down on the warm ground, her palms pressed to the dusty earth. There was no storm, no thunder, no dramatic downpour to mirror her emotions. Everything around her was calm, ordinary, almost cruelly indifferent to what was happening. The sound of the wind rustling through the corn stalks and the distant clucking of chickens were the only witnesses to her collapse. Her voice trembled as she looked up, eyes shining with hope and fear. "Please, let me stay. I beg you." In the doorway stood Tuan's mother, the woman Diem had once respected, admired, even hoped to call family. Her expression was stone-like, cold and unmoving, as if someone had taken a blade and carved away every trace of warmth. This was the same woman who used to smile at Diem, offer her tea on hot afternoons, and ask her to help pick vegetables in the garden. But today, those soft memories felt like illusions, replaced by a harshness that Diem could not understand. The older woman crossed her arms, gaze sharp and unforgiving. There was no hesitation, no sign of inner struggle. When she spoke, her voice sliced through the air, each word landing with the weight of a verdict. "You no longer have a place here." For a moment, Diem forgot how to breathe. She stared, wide-eyed, searching for even the smallest hint of compassion, a flicker of doubt, anything. But the woman simply stood there, unwavering, a gatekeeper shutting her out of the life she had worked so hard to build. Her lips parted, but no words came out at first. Her mind raced, replaying every memory, every moment of kindness, every shared meal and shared laughter. What had she done wrong? Why had everything changed so suddenly? She pressed her hand over her chest, as if trying to hold her breaking heart together. Finally, with all the strength she could gather, Diem tried again. "If I've made a mistake, please tell me. I can fix it. Just don't make me go." Her voice cracked at the end, a fragile plea carried off by the breeze. But Tuan's mother didn't soften. She took a single step forward and pulled the old wooden door toward her. The hinges creaked, loud and final, like a gavel striking at the end of a trial. Then the door closed, not slammed in anger, but shut with the cold resolve of someone who had already made her choice. The courtyard fell silent again. Diem remained kneeling, her shadow stretching across the sun-baked ground. And in that ordinary, sunny afternoon, a world that had once felt safe suddenly slipped through her fingers. She realized that her home was no longer hers, and for the first time, the farm felt like a place she no longer belonged. At at that very moment, somewhere down the dusty road leading to the farmhouse, Tuan was riding home with a lightness in his step, unaware that the world he knew was already crumbling. The sun still shone warmly on his shoulders, and he hummed to himself as he carried a bag of supplies he had picked up in town. He was thinking about Diem and the smile she would give him when he returned, how she always greeted him at the gate like he was coming home from a long journey, even if he had only been gone an hour. That thought alone made his heart warm. But as he approached the farm, the silence felt strange. No sound of Diem watering the plants, no cheerful humming, no gentle footsteps moving across the yard. The air felt oddly empty. Then he saw her, Diem, walking down the path with her small suitcase trembling in her hands, her shoulders tight and her gaze locked firmly on the ground. The sunlight caught the moisture in her eyes, but she refused to let a single tear fall until she was out of sight. Tuan froze, disbelief striking him before panic took over. He dropped the bag he was carrying and ran toward her. "Diem!" he called out, breath catching in his throat. She stopped but didn't turn around. When he reached her, she finally lifted her head, and the pain in her eyes hit him like a blow to the chest. "She told me to leave," Diem whispered, struggling to keep her voice steady. "I begged her, but she wouldn't listen." Tuan stared at her, stunned. Those words didn't make sense. His mother? The same woman who had once called Diem a blessing, who praised her kindness, who looked at her with the pride of a future daughter-in-law. Before he could ask anything more, Diem placed a hand on his arm, as if trying to stop him from running back into the house. "Don't fight with her because of me," she murmured. Then, before he could react, she stepped away and continued down the long path, leaving Tuan standing there with his world unraveling in silence. His pulse pounding, Tuan stormed into the house. His mother was sitting in the kitchen, calmly wiping down the table as if nothing had happened. The normalcy of the scene only fueled his confusion and anger. "How could you do that?" he demanded, voice thick with disbelief. "What happened? Why did you send her away?" His mother paused, her hand still holding the cloth, but she didn't look at him. After a long moment, she set the cloth down and finally spoke, her voice flat, unflinching. "Tuan," she began, "there's something you need to know, something I should have told you long ago." He frowned, his breath shallow. His mother lifted her gaze, and in her eyes was not regret, but resolve. "You," she inhaled slowly, "you are not my biological son." The words crashed over him with the force of a landslide. The room seemed to tilt, the walls closing in. He shook his head, unable to believe what he had heard. She continued, voice steady and merciless. "You were an orphan. I found you and brought you here. I raised you, but you were never truly mine." The truth settled heavily in the air, and for the first time, Tuan understood why the farm felt so silent. Because the security he had always believed in had just shattered at his feet. For a few long seconds, Tuan simply stood there, staring at his mother as though the ground beneath him had cracked open. His heartbeat was loud in his ears, faster than his thoughts could keep up. All his life, he had believed he belonged here, that this farmhouse was his foundation, the place where he had roots, history, and family. Now, with a single revelation, that entire foundation had been kicked out from under him. The kitchen, the same one where he learned to peel vegetables as a child, where his mother had once kissed the back of his scraped hand, felt foreign, as if he were standing inside a stranger's house. He swallowed hard. If I wasn't your son, he whispered, voice strained, why didn't you say anything before? His mother's expression did not waver. She looked almost relieved to finally speak the truth, but her relief wasn't soft. It was cold, businesslike. Because it didn't matter then. You were small, you needed a roof, and I needed someone to help work this land. The words hit him with a harsh clarity. All at once, he understood Diem's expulsion wasn't emotional. It was practical, mechanical, as simple to her as culling a weak crop. His mother wasn't acting out of betrayal, she was acting out of calculation. Before he could respond, she continued, her voice decisive and hard as a blade. Now, pack your things, we leave tomorrow. Tuan blinked. Leave? Go where? A new place. I've sold part of the farm. There are bigger opportunities waiting. But if you stay here, you'll only be stuck, just like the girl. For a moment, Tuan couldn't speak. The girl. That was how his mother referred to Diem, like she was nothing, like she hadn't tended every corner of this land with her own hands, watered crops at sunrise, stayed up late organizing finances, built dreams and futures alongside him. The image of Diem walking away, trying so hard not to cry under the afternoon sun, tore through him. He clenched his fists. I'm not leaving, he said, breath shaking. Diem belongs here, and so do I. His mother's eyes hardened. No, you belong nowhere unless I give you a place. Those words landed like a final judgment. And then she said the line that erased the last traces of childhood warmth between them. If you refuse to come with me, you can leave this house as well, just like her. Silence fell, thick, suffocating. The ticking of the old clock on the wall seemed louder than ever. Tuan felt the room closing in, as if every memory he'd ever built here was being cut away one piece at a time. He was no longer a son, no longer family. He was just temporary. His eyes burned, not with tears, but with a dawning grief so deep it rooted itself in the very center of his chest. He looked around the kitchen one more time. The faded wallpaper, the clay pots drying by the sink, the window where he and Diem had once watched the fireflies dancing over the fields, and realized that everything he thought was his had never truly belonged to him. Without another word, he turned and walked outside. The afternoon sun was still bright, reflecting off the dirt path that stretched towards the horizon. Somewhere down that same road, Diem was walking alone, carrying her pain quietly. And now, Tuan was joining her, not because he had been brave enough to choose, but because he had been forced out of the only home he ever knew. His world had changed forever, and there was no going back.
Hello, xin chào tất cả các khán giả của kênh Lý Tử Diễn Review. Vậy là câu chuyện của chúng ta đã kết thúc tại đây. Hôm nay có một tình tiết rất là bất ngờ và sốc, đó chính là việc Toàn không phải là con ruột của mẹ anh và anh cũng đã chính thức bị đuổi ra khỏi nhà. Anh cũng chỉ là một đứa trẻ mồ côi được nhận về nuôi như Lý Tử Diễm mà thôi. Mọi tình tiết hấp dẫn về câu chuyện tình yêu Diễm và Toàn còn sẽ được kể ở các video tiếp theo. Các bạn đừng quên bấm vào nút subscribe để đăng ký kênh, sẽ nhận được thông báo mới nhất về các tập phim sẽ được phát sóng hàng ngày trên kênh nha. Cảm ơn các bạn rất nhiều. Thanks for watching and see you.